Evening, friend. Glad you're here. Tonight, we're slipping quietly into the dusty boots of an Old West cowboy, and trust me, they pinch. Picture the open plains beneath a sky spilling with stars, the groan of tired cattle, the dry wind tugging at your coat. And there you are trying not to fall off a stubborn horse named Judas, wondering why anyone ever thought this life was glorious. Spoiler, it's mostly sunburn, bad coffee, and boots full of regret. Now, before we settle in, just a heads up, this video has no ads, no sudden music, no jump scares for your ears, just calm, steady storytelling so you can drift off without a single interruption. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere far and dusty, maybe Amarillo, maybe just your apartment in Tokyo, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I love seeing how far these sleepy stories travel. Now we dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive in town with big dreams and a pair of borrowed spurs. It takes 5 minutes for the smell to hit you horse sweat. Tobacco, stale beer, and something suspiciously like pickled feet. Someone bumps into you. You apologize. They spit. Welcome to cowboy life. You signed up to drive cattle. You imagined sunsets, open plains, and campfires with your new best friends. What you get is blisters, bad beans, and a horse named Judas who clearly wants you dead. They hand you your gear, saddle that squeaks, rope that frays, boots that were only worn by two fellas before you. You climb onto Judas. He immediately trots under a low branch. You duck too late. The hat flies off. Your dignity follows. The other cowboys laugh not kindly. You adjust your grip, try to sit taller, pretend your tailbone isn't already regretting everything. This is fine. You lie to yourself. This is what adventure feels like, right? The cattle drive begins at dawn. That means 4 a.m. It's not poetic. It's cold. Someone hands you coffee that tastes like regret and burnt socks. You sip it anyway, because caffeine is now your only friend. You set off down the trail, the herd rumbling ahead like some slow-moving earthquake with horns and no manners. It smells like damp fur and fear. You try not to breathe too much. After 2 hours, your legs are on fire. Nobody told you how much of cowboying is just sitting painfully. You can't feel your toes. You can feel your spine every jolt, every bump. You shift in the saddle. Judas whinnies in a way that sounds suspiciously like a snicker. You tell him to hush. He steps in a puddle on purpose. Your boot soaks through. Beautiful. Lunch. If you're lucky, you get jerky that could break a window and a chunk of bread that might have been fresh sometime last week. One cowboy offers you dried apples. They taste like sadness. You nod thanks anyway. Out here, politeness is survival. Or at least, it helps you not get pushed into a cactus. You ask someone how long this drive lasts. They shrug. Till we get there. You try again. How many miles? He laughs. We don't measure in miles. We measure in blisters. Fair. By the second day, your thighs scream every time you climb into the saddle. By the third day, your saddle sores have their own names. You call the worst one Sheriff Ouch. He enforces a strict no-sitting policy. Historians still argue whether cattle drives were the romantic proving grounds of rugged masculinity, or just underpaid chaos with extra sunburns. Probably both. But either way, you're in it now. Tumbleweeds roll by. Vultures circle. The sun bakes your neck while your hat sags and flops like a tired pancake. Someone sneezes behind you and spooks the herd. Suddenly you're galloping, not gracefully, more like a wobbly marionette with panic in its eyes. You chase a stray calf for half a mile, shouting things that don't make sense even to you. You finally corner it near a creek, breathing like you swallowed gravel. The calf blinks. You blink. You both agree not to do that again. At camp, you collapse beside the fire. Not for warmth, it's mostly smoke. But it's something. You stretch out your legs and pretend the dirt is a feather bed. It's not. It's lumpy. It's cold. It has opinions. You don't care. You're asleep before your hat hits your face. 5 minutes later, someone nudges you. You've got first watch. Of course you do. You blink at the stars and wonder what your cousin's doing right now back in St. Louis. Probably eating pie with a fork and no saddle sores. You shiver through your shift. Coyotes yip in the distance. Your candle stub sputters. Your eyelids droop. Then you hear it. Thump. Clatter. Snort. You squint into the dark. One of the cows has wandered off again. You sigh. You get up. You chase. Because you're a cowboy now. And this is what regret smells like. You wake up with your face in the dirt. It's not poetic. It's not cinematic. It's just gritty. There's a stone wedged beneath your cheek that seems to have developed a personal vendetta. And somehow, your hat's halfway across camp stuck to someone's saddle like it found a better home. You roll onto your side with a low groan. Every joint in your body sends a formal complaint to management, which is you. You are the management. You sit up slowly, feeling about as graceful as a dying turtle. Your back cracks. Twice. Your knees follow suit, chiming in like old floorboards. This is cowboy life. The air smells like wet leather, burnt beans, and something faintly resembling armpit stew. You shuffle toward the breakfast fire, where a pot of something vaguely edible bubbles in the smoky dawn. The beans are already mush. The coffee is boiling so dark it reflects your soul back at you, and that soul looks tired. You sip it anyway, because that bitter, gritty sludge is the closest thing you'll get to affection all day. You chew a bite of stale biscuit with so much jaw pressure, you nearly dislodge a molar. No one's talking, just chewing and nodding. This is cowboy conversation. 1 nod for good morning, 2 for I slept like trash, and 3 for don't talk to me until I've finished this bean. You give 2 nods. That feels honest. Judas, your horse. Your tormentor is already saddled, looking smug. You approach him like he's a trap that remembers things. He watches you without blinking. You murmur something about a fresh start, and he snorts in your face. Fair enough. You swing yourself up into the saddle, awkwardly and painfully adjusting to yesterday's bruises. Your inner thighs throb in protest. Your rear end files for early retirement. Judas ambles forward before you're fully settled, just to remind you who's in charge. Spoiler. It's not you. The cattle are already moving. You fall into formation with the rest of the drive, half dozing in rhythm with the herd. Their hooves crunch the dried earth, tails swishing lazily, dust rising like breath from the ground. You look up and notice clouds rolling in across the horizon, slow, dark, and mean. One of the older cowboys rides up beside you. He squints at the sky and mutters, "She's building a temper." You nod again. That seems like something to agree with. Storms on the trail aren't romantic. They're not cleansing or metaphorical. They're just wet, cold, and usually followed by chaos. You pull your coat tighter, not that it helps much. By midday, the temperature drops, and the first raindrop hits your nose like a warning shot. Then the rest follow. a full-on downpour thick. Angry drops that soak through every layer of clothing you own in seconds. Your hat is now decorative. Your coat is a sponge. Your boots are bathtubs. The herd moves nervously. The wind howls across the open plains, whipping at your coat and tugging your breath from your mouth. Mud forms instantly beneath your horse's hooves. Thick, slippery, treacherous. The kind of mud that wants to pull you off balance and keep your dignity as a souvenir. You cling to Judas' saddle horn, muttering a prayer to whichever saint handles saddle sores and sudden weather. Then panic. A cow bellows. Loud. Unnatural. Something spooks the herd. The line breaks. Hooves thunder. The earth shakes. You've heard of stampedes before. Read about them. Thought vaguely that they sounded dramatic. Now you know they are loud, terrifying, and extremely fast. Hundreds of cows, moving like a wall of meat and fear, crashing across the landscape. And you are right in the middle. You grab tight to Judas's reins. He bolts. You lean forward, nearly horizontal, holding on with everything you've got. Your hat flies off. Of course it does. You weave through the chaos, dodging horns, mud, and that one calf who looks almost apologetic before kicking you in the shin. It's a blur of motion and noise and smells you wish you couldn't describe. Your heart slams against your ribs. Your breath comes in sharp bursts. You scream something, maybe a command, maybe just a swear into the wind. And somehow, eventually, it stops. The herd slows, breathing hard, muddied, drenched. You and Judas stand still in the middle of the wreckage, both trembling. You pat his neck, part apology, part thanks. He doesn't bite you. That's something. You look around. Other riders are regrouping, shaken but upright. One has a bloody nose. One has lost his saddle. Another just laughs, like he's survived this 100 times. You feel like you've aged 10 years. The sky still grumbles, but the worst seems to have passed. For now. Camp is made early that night. Nobody has the energy for more trail. You try to help gather firewood, but everything is soaked. Someone finally gets a flame going, coaxing it like a newborn bird. The fire smokes more than it burns, but it's a victory nonetheless. Supper is wet beans with soggy biscuits. Again. You eat with numb fingers, sitting cross-legged in wet pants, wondering if your spine will ever forgive you. Someone plays a tune on a harmonica, half in tune, half out of breath. The melody floats across the camp like a ghost looking for closure. You close your eyes for a second and swear you hear something like peace. Then someone farts, loudly. The ghost leaves. As the night creeps in, you lie on your damp bedroll, staring up at the sky, a swirl of silver clouds and hesitant stars. Someone nearby asks, "What made you come out here anyway?" You think about it. Adventure, escape, romance, all the stuff books and newspapers sold you. But here, under this vast and heartless sky, it all feels a little silly. You shrug. Just wanted something different. A long pause. Yeah, the voice says. Me too. You fall asleep to the low murmur of cattle, the snap of the dying fire, and the steady rhythm of your own doubts. Out here, nobody's a legend. Just tired men chasing stories they're no longer sure they believe in. You wake up to chaos. Again. But this time, it's not thunder or someone snoring like a dying mule, it's hooves. Fast ones. You jolt upright, heart hammering in that half asleep. Do I need pants? Kind of panic. The sun hasn't even peeked over the horizon yet. But a handful of cattle have decided today's the day they try their luck at freedom, or at least freedom in the direction of the nearest cactus patch. You throw your boots on backward at first, curse quietly, fix them, and grab your saddle. Judas is already there, looking like he's been waiting his whole life for this moment to judge you. You mutter something like, "Please, not today." And he responds with a sideways glance that says, "Every day is today." You leap into the saddle well, more like scramble up using desperation and pure groin strength, and kick him into a gallop. The wind stings your eyes. You and Judas charge down the trail, trying to cut off the breakaways before they scatter into the brush. A steer breaks left. You veer right. It's the wrong move. Another cow bolts behind you, and for a few horrifying seconds, you're not chasing them. They're chasing you. You loop around a thicket, spot a spooked calf trying to backpedal into a thorn bush, and manage to rope it on the second try, with more luck than skill. You feel like a hero for exactly 4 seconds. Then the calf sneezes directly into your face. The Old West is generous like that. By the time the cattle are wrangled back into formation, the sky has lightened, your hat is muddy, and your shirt is soaked through not from rain, but from good old-fashioned regret. You ride back to camp, exhausted, bruised, smelling like barn, dust, and a hint of shame. There's coffee waiting, it's cold, it's gritty, it has the personality of a kick boot. You drink it anyway, because no one makes fresh coffee for the guy who let the herd escape. Not that it was your fault, but Cowboy Justice is fast and flavorless. The morning ride is quiet. The cattle seem embarrassed about the whole incident. The other cowboys, too. No one's in the mood to rib you about it yet. You all move through the warming landscape like ghosts. Dry grass crackles under hooves. Dust clings to everything. The sun climbs like it's angry about being woken up. Your shirt starts sticking to your back in that way that makes you question why cotton was ever invented. A fly circles your head with intimate interest. You swat it. It comes back stronger, emotionally. You try to focus on the horizon, which looks exactly the same as it did yesterday, and the day before that, and probably the next 20 to come. Around midday, the group pauses by a shallow stream, if you can call it that. It's more a suggestion of water than actual hydration. You kneel beside it, splash your face, and take a long sip from your canteen. It tastes like horse, possibly because it's been sitting next to Judah's backside all morning. But it's wet, and that's all that matters now. Lunch is no surprises beans. One cowboy adds jerky to his. The rest of you stare at him like he's royalty. He offers no explanation, just chews with smug detachment. You don't ask where he got it. You just silently plot how to steal it next time he sleeps. Later, while pushing the herd through a rocky pass, you feel the shift in Judas's stride. Something about the trail, loose gravel, maybe makes him nervous. You glance down the slope beside you. Not a cliff, exactly, but steep enough to make you reconsider all your recent life choices. The cattle bunch up. The line wavers. A young steer near the edge slips slightly, catches itself, but yelps in surprise. The yelp spooks the rest. For a second, you think you're headed straight down the hill, tumbling like a denim-clad snowball of panic. But Judas, traitor that he is, stops short and huffs at you like it's your fault the ground is a suggestion. You pat his neck. He flinches like you just insulted his mother. Trust is a two-way street. Yours is under construction. Evening brings more tension. The trail boss, a man with a jaw like a weathered fence post, pulls everyone together. One of the wagons lost a wheel earlier. Supplies are being reloaded. You offer to help, mostly to feel useful. partly to stay out of bean duty. You haul sacks, crates, ropes, none of them labeled, all of them suspiciously heavy. One crate jingles ominously. You ask what's in it? Someone shrugs. Maybe pots. Maybe a snake. Only one way to find out. You decide not to. Back at camp, the fire sputters weakly. You sit near it, arms heavy, boots damp from whatever that mud puddle was made of. A cowboy named Red who has 0 red features. So you assume it's ironic starts playing harmonica? He's not good. But after a day like today, you'll take any melody, even one that sounds like a duck stuck in a bottle. It's oddly comforting. You stare into the flames, letting the smoke chase away the buzzing in your mind. You hear laughter, not mocking real, tired laughter from a few feet away. And it hits you. Despite the pain, the dirt, the daily disasters, you're not alone, and that makes it bearable, almost. Later, curled up in your stiff blanket, you find yourself humming Red's broken tune under your breath. You're sore in new and confusing places. Your lips are chapped. Your fingernails have dirt under them that may never come out. But you're warm. You're not dead. And somehow that's enough. You drift off thinking not about glory or gold, but about how grateful you are that tomorrow hasn't started yet. You wake before dawn, not because someone yells, or a cow wanders into your sleeping space, but because your back has finally decided to rebel. There's a knot near your spine that feels like is auditioning to be a second backbone. You stretch, which helps until it doesn't. The cold air bites your skin as you sit up, pulling your coat tight around your shoulders. Your blanket is damp, your boots are stiff, and Judas is already glaring at you from his post, chewing something that may or may not be your glove. You sigh. Another day, another symphony of discomfort. Coffee first. You trudge to the fire, where someone's already boiled water and committed war crimes against a bag of beans. The brew steams like it knows it's evil. You take a sip. It's scalding and bitter, with notes of charred wood and despair. Perfect. Breakfast is more of the same dried meat. Leftover beans. A biscuit that could legally be classified as a blunt weapon. You eat it all without comment, because there's no one left to complain to. Even your own stomach has stopped filing reports. The day begins with a push. You're driving the herd through a narrow canyon, one of those places that looks scenic if you ignore how easily it could trap you. The walls rise high on either side, casting long shadows across the trail. You try to keep the cattle moving at a steady pace, but the walls mess with their senses. Everything echoes. Even your whistle comes back to you like someone else is watching. You catch yourself scanning the cliffs, half expecting bandits to appear like ghosts from a dime novel. Because that's the thing about the Old West, it wasn't all gunfights and saloons. It was mostly waiting and watching and never really knowing if that rustle in the rocks was wind or worse. The trail boss calls a halt for water. You lead Judas to a shallow pool nestled between the canyon walls. He drinks. You kneel and splash water on your face, feeling the grit slide off in slow motion. You look up and see your reflection blurry, sunburnt, wild-eyed. You don't quite recognize yourself. The sun catches the edge of the cliff and throws a golden line down the rock. It's almost beautiful, but you don't trust it. Out here, beauty usually hides something sharp. By midday, the heat settles in again. The canyon turns into an oven. No breeze, no shade, just hot rock and sweat. You loosen your bandana, wipe your forehead, and notice your fingernails are now a permanent shade of trail brown. One of the younger cowboys faints right off his saddle. You stop, help him up, hand him your canteen without thinking. He takes a sip, breathes, then nods. Thanks. You nod back. Nothing more needs saying. In the West, kindness is rare enough that when it happens, no one wants to smother it with words. The trail winds upward, out of the canyon and onto a ridge that overlooks the valley below. The view is stunning, endless, open, dotted with brush and winding streams. You pause. Not because the cattle need it, but because you do. For a moment, everything feels still. You take a long breath, and the silence wraps around you like a blanket that doesn't itch. You think, this is what people romanticize. This 10 seconds of peace before the next terrible thing. You hold on to it because you know better than to expect it'll last. On the other side of the ridge, the path descends fast and crooked. One steer missteps. It tumbles a few feet before scrambling upright again. You grit your teeth and tighten your grip on the reins. Judas snorts, unimpressed, and picks his way down like he's auditioning for ballet. You follow his lead, trying not to think about how little control you actually have. The descent is slow, tense, and filled with the kind of silence that only comes from people focusing very, very hard on not dying. You make it. Everyone does. But no one says a word when you reach the bottom. You just keep riding. Because the second you relax is the second the trail reminds you it's not your friend. Camp that night is quiet. Not in a peaceful way, more in a too tired to speak way. You rub your knees, your shoulders, the part of your lower back that's been screaming since breakfast. You consider asking someone to trade for a real pillow, but all anyone has is an extra saddlebag or a bundle of firewood. You pass. Your head rests on your arm instead. It's surprisingly okay. As the fire pops and sparks drift into the star-splattered sky, a few stories break the silence. Someone talks about a ghost town they passed once, all boarded windows and a hollow footsteps. Someone else swears he saw lights in the mountains last night. Not lanterns, but something blue and floating. You don't know if they're lying, and you don't really care, because the West is full of stories like that, weird, half-true, passed along like heirlooms no one wants to admit they believe. Historians still argue whether those tales were ways to stay alert or ways to keep from going crazy. You sip the last of your coffee, now cold, and wonder which one you're leaning toward. Sleep comes slow, not because you're not tired, you are, but the wind keeps shifting, and the fire keeps dying. And every sound, a twig snap, a hoof stomp, a low moo hits your ears like a question you don't know how to answer. Eventually, your body wins the argument. You sink into the blanket, into the dirt, into the rhythm of this strange, unforgiving life. And just before sleep claims you, you realize you haven't thought about home all day. Not once. You wake up coughing. Not a dainty little hymn, no. This one feels like it's got claws. Rakes up your throat, squeezes your chest, and leaves your lungs humming with soreness. The kind of cough that makes you wonder if you swallowed a cactus in your sleep. You sit up slowly, bones creaking like an old floorboard. Your blanket's damp with sweat, though the air around you's cold dry, still, and filled with the bitter tang of last night's fire. Then you hear it again, not your cough this time. Someone else. Across the campfire, it's Eli, wrapped tight in his bedroll, hacking hard enough to make the horses twitch. His face glows pale in the early light, and every breath comes out ragged. Nobody moves to help. Not because they don't care, but because they've seen this before. Maybe too many times. Sickness has its own rules out here, and mercy ain't always one of them. You shuffle toward the pot, blanket still slung over your shoulders. The coffee's been sitting for who knows how long, but it's hot and bitter and sharp enough to feel like armor going down. You hand a tin to Eli. His hands tremble too badly to hold it, so you crouch beside him and guide the rim to his lips. He takes a few sips, then winces. Tastes like horse piss. You nod. Means it's working. He tries to smile. Fails. Somewhere behind you. Walt mutters, "Trail fever." I bet. Another voice offers Texas lung, which could mean anything from dust inhalation to a bad attitude. Historians still argue whether most trail illnesses came from bacteria, poor food, stagnant water, or just sheer exhaustion. You figure it's probably all of the above, mixed with a little bad luck and no soap. The trail boss shows no sign of slowing the drive. Sick or not, cattle still need moving, and there ain't enough hands to afford compassion. So Eli, stubborn fool that he is, mounts up anyway. You ride beside him as the herd moves out. The sun's not even high yet, and already your skin feels too tight. Your throat's raw. Even your eyelids feel dry. Eli coughs again. Judas flicks an ear in disapproval. You pat his neck like an apology. The dust today is especially thick, kicked up in long, swirling columns by the herd's hooves. It clings to your teeth and settles into every wrinkle of your shirt. You taste grit with every breath, and your canteen's half gone by noon. At the next creek, you drop down and splash water on your face, watching the current ripple over your hands. One of the younger riders soaks a bandana and ties it over Ella's forehead. No words exchanged, just a quiet, practiced routine. Midday brings another body to the list, not a cowboy this time. A steer, stumbling, frothing, clearly fevered. It collapses right there in the trail. The trail boss doesn't even slow his horse, just rides up, glances once, and pulls out the same knife every cowboy hopes never to see used. You turn away, again. The sound is quick, efficient, and then it's silent, just the flies buzzing in like mourners with no manners. You look at Eli, he doesn't flinch, doesn't say a word. Because out here, when something goes down, you thank the dirt it wasn't you, then you move on. That night, Eli can't dismount without help. You and Jeremiah lift him down slow, easing him into his blanket like a cracked egg back in the shell. His lips are dry. His eyes keep drifting off, even as you speak to him. Walt brings over a jar of something Murky says it's cough tonic, though it smells suspiciously like kerosene and regret. Still, Eli takes a sip, then another, coughs, gags, then sleeps. Sort of. You sit with him while the others eat. Watch the fire flicker over his face. Its pinched now cheeks hollowed, skin too tight. You've seen this look before. Back in Missouri. A cousin. Maybe. Or a neighbor. Someone who didn't make it through winter. After dinner, the men get quiet. Someone half-heartedly strums a banjo. Another mumbles a prayer without looking up. You notice the circle around the fire has widened, folks giving Eli distance. Whether out of fear or superstition, you don't know. But you stay beside him anyway. Someone places a canteen by his head. Another leaves a folded coat at his feet. It's the cowboy version of a hospital. No walls, no nurses, just silent gestures and long, slow waiting. Later that night, you wake to another cough. Not Ellis. Different voice. Jeremiah this time. You sit up, eyes scanning the dark, counting how many others are stirring, how many are sniffling, how many are too quiet. And just like that, the worry settles in deeper than the cold. If it's spreading, you lie back, watching the stars blink above, your mind racing through all the half remedies and folk cures you've ever heard: apple cider vinegar, mustard poultices, whiskey sweat baths, rubbing garlic on your chest. Someone swore by boiling willow bark. Though you're not even sure what a willow looks like out here. You whisper an old prayer under your breath, not because you believe it'll work, but because you don't know what else to do with your mouth. Eli stirs beside you, opens one eye, still alive. He croaks. You chuckle, barely. He smiles, weak but real. You pass him a flask, just water, but in this moment, it might as well be gold. He drinks, grimaces, then says, "Tell my ma I was handsome, all right?" You snort. She already knows. He coughs again, but this time it doesn't sound quite as deep, and that tiny difference keeps you from giving up. When morning comes, you're stiff, sore, but still breathing. El is snoring lightly. His fever is broken a little. There's color in his cheeks again, not much, but enough to make you think maybe, just maybe, he'll pull through. You stretch, stand. The air is still cold, but it's different now. The fire's down to coals. The others are stirring, and somehow you're grateful for this moment, for the weight of your boots, for the taste of dust and the scratch of wind and the sound of someone coughing just a little in the dark, because it means you're all still here, still trying, still breathing. You are up before the sun, again, and not because you are eager to greet the day. No, it's because your back has declared mutiny sometime in the night, one vertebra at a time. It stages a full uprising, and now you're sitting in your bedroll like someone tried to fold you the wrong way. You try to roll onto your side, your spine refuses, your knees pop, your shoulders feel like someone beat them with a frying pan. And just to round things off, your lips are cracked, your fingers are stiff, and there's a fly in your coffee water. You mutter something unrepeatable. Across the ashes of the old fire, Walt lifts a brow. "Sleep well, princess?" You grunt. No point in talking when the morning already smells like dust and despair. Judas lumbers into view, chewing on a mouthful of someone's saddlebag. You take it as a sign of affection. He snorts at you, then drops the leather like he's disappointed in your life choices. You toss him a few dry oats, and he pretends he wasn't hungry. Classic Judas. Meanwhile, breakfast is the usual lineup: beans, burnt coffee, and a biscuit that could legally qualify as a weapon. You chew slowly, letting the heat from the fire thaw your hands while the world begins to brighten around you. Someone coughs, then another. Not Eli this time, though he's still there, still wrapped tight in his blanket, breathing like each breath is a small battle. But the new cough is sharper, closer. You glance around the circle. No one meets your eye. That's not good. The trail boss doesn't say much this morning, just swings into the saddle and whistles once. That's the signal. And like a row of exhausted dominoes, you all rise, stretch, groan, and follow. Because out here, there are no rest days. Not for cows, not for cowboys. No one's going to pause the drive just because you're sore, sad, or scared. The cattle don't care. Neither does the sun. So you climb onto Judas, who makes a noise like he's seriously considering quitting the job, and the day begins. Today's route hugs a ridge not high, but steep. To the left, a tumble of rocks leads to thorny scrub and maybe a broken ankle. To the right, a few patches of dry grass and the same vultures that have been trailing you for days. The herd moves slow, skittish. The trail is narrow, the footing uncertain. You keep a tight hold on the reins, sensing Judas' hesitation beneath you. Every shift in his weight feels like a warning. Then it happens. One cow, a big old longhorn with a twitchy tail, steps wrong. Her hoof slips, just a little. She panics, charges forward, clips another steer. That one panics too, and suddenly, stampede. It starts like thunder, hooves slamming into rock, dust shooting up like cannon smoke. Cows bellow, riders shout. The ridge becomes chaos, a rolling wall of muscle and fear. You spur Judas to the side, heart hammering. He darts right, nimble despite his size, barely missing a charging steer that barrels past, eyes wild. You can't see anything clearly, just flashes of horns, tails, shadows moving fast and unpredictable. Up ahead, a rider gets knocked sideways, falls hard. Another tries to cut the herd, swinging a lasso and yelling something you can't hear over the noise. Dust fills your mouth, coats your teeth. You cough, but there's no time to spit. You hold tight. Stay low. Focus. 2 minutes feel like a year. And then slowly it begins to settle. The herd spreads out, slows. Riders shout and circle. The thunder fades into the sound of heavy breathing and creaking leather. But the aftermath is messy. You dismount, legs shaking. The cowboy who fell is face down in the dust, alive barely, his left arm's clearly broken. A bruise is forming fast on his temple. Walt kneels beside him, muttering. Someone hands over a canteen. A second cowboy is missing, but then someone finds him limping down the ridge, shirt torn, a scrape across his jaw. One cow is dead. Another twisted its leg and won't stand. Judas snorts beside you like has offended by the whole experience. You pat his neck, trying to calm both of you. The trail boss rides in slowly, hat down, jaw tight. Well, he mutters, that's one way to wake up. No one laughs. The next few hours are just triage. You and two others rig a stretcher out of a tarp and 2 fence posts. The injured man winces but doesn't cry out when you lift him. The cattle are scattered, and it takes half the day to regroup them. Dust still hangs in the air like fog. You don't eat lunch. No one does. There's too much to do. And frankly, no one's hungry anymore. By late afternoon, the herd is moving again, slower, unsteady, but moving. That counts. Back at camp, silence hangs heavier than usual. You eat your beans with your hat still on, staring into the fire like it owes you answers. Someone's harmonica sits untouched. Eli coughs quietly. Not better yet, but not worse. The injured cowboy is propped against a saddlebag, drinking weak coffee. His leg is splinted with a tree branch and someone's belt. It's not elegant, but it'll hold. A younger cowboy hums something low, steady. A hymn, maybe. The words are half forgotten, but the melody wraps around you like a wool blanket. Someone passes a bottle. You take a sip as it burns, but it helps. That night, you and Judas walk a short stretch away from camp. You both need the space. He sniffs at a tumbleweed. You sit on a rock and breathe, just breathe. Above you, the stars blink through the thinning dust, cold and distant. You think about how close everything came to going wrong, how thin the line is between order and chaos out here. No fences, no safety nets, just your wits, your horse, and luck, mostly luck. You look over at Judas, don't get any ideas. You whisper, "You're not carrying me if I break something." He flicks his tail like he's already decided otherwise. You walk back together in silence, hooves crunching soft over gravel. Back at the fire, the others are still awake, tired, but there, and you realize something strange. No one talked much today, but everyone moved the same direction, like a team, like a family, or maybe just a bunch of strangers trying not to fall apart. Either way, it's enough. For now. You wake to the sound of something sloshing, not a dangerous slosh, like rain in a flooded creek or cow stuck in mud. No, this is gentler, repetitive, measured. It's Walt, pouring water into a basin. His boots crunch softly as he walks. The sun's not up yet, but the air's already tinged with the promise of heat and dust. Always dust. You sit up slower this morning, not because you're more tired, but because everything just aches in one unified chorus. Muscles, joints, skin, soul. Across from you, Eli coughs into a rag. It's quieter now, more tired than violent. That's something. The cowboy with the busted leg is still asleep, face twitching slightly. His splint has been adjusted, and someone even gave him a little shade with a blanket strung between two saddles. You nod at the gesture. Cowboys aren't sentimental, but they look after their own. Breakfast is eggs. Actual eggs. You blink at the plate like it's a hallucination, but no Walt's standing there, flipping over his last pan with a self-satisfied grunt. Traded for 'em, he says. With that trapper yesterday. Wanted 2 tins of tobacco and a comb. You didn't even know Walt carried a comb. The eggs taste like heaven. Or maybe just like something that didn't come out of a burlap sack. Either way, they make the coffee go down smoother, and the morning a little less sharp. You eat slowly, watching the light shift across the ridgeline, listening to the small noises of a camp trying to pretend everything's normal. Someone's sharpening a knife, another's brushing his horse. You hear quiet humming the same hymn from last night, picked up again like a thread not quite finished. You close your eyes for a second. Let it wash over you. The day's route cuts lower today through a shallow ravine lined with scrub brush and the occasional rabbit bold enough to dart across your path. The herd moves sluggish, still unsettled from the stampede. You can't blame them. Neither can Judas, who takes every step like Keys evaluating the land for hidden traps. You ride middle of the pack today, not out front, not in the rear, just in between. It feels right, feels safer. Your eyes scan constantly. Rocks, snakes, signs of more sick cows, signs of worse. It's hot, sticky. The kind of heat that doesn't burn but burrows into you slow and humid. The kind that makes shirts cling and tempers boil. Jeremiah rides beside you for a while. Doesn't say much, just hums a tune, taps the rhythm against his saddle horn. After a while, he offers you a piece of dried apple. You take it, chew, swallow. Say, thanks. That's the whole conversation. It means everything. Midway through the day, you pass a cluster of low stones, too evenly shaped to be natural. You slow your horse, look closer. 4 piles, rough, unmarked, but each one topped with a single rusted horseshoe. Graves. Cowboys. Likely. Or maybe drovers. Could have been settlers. Could have been anyone. There's no sign, no fence, just the whisper of wind and 4 reminders that the trail always gets its share. You tip your hat. The others do too. Nobody speaks. Historians still argue whether cowboys were superstitious or just respectful in their own rough way. You think maybe it's both. After all, it doesn't cost much to nod at the dead, but it might cost more not to. As the sun climbs, so does the smell. Something's off. Not just sweat and livestock that's normal. This is sharper, riper. A sick cow limps along the back of the herd, ribs showing, one eye clouded. Walt rides up beside her, frowns. She stumbles, doesn't get up. He sighs, draws his rifle. You look away. The shot is clean, quick, followed by silence that settles too heavy for the afternoon. The herd barely reacts. They've seen this before too. Walt says nothing, just rides on. You follow, because there's nothing else to do. Camp that night feels heavier, not louder, just heavier. Everyone's tired, dried out. The eggs from this morning are a distant, foggy dream. You rub your face, then your neck, then your temples. The dust has worked its way into your scalp, your ears, your eyebrows. You're not entirely sure what your original skin color was. Someone's playing a slow song on a fiddle. You didn't even know there was a fiddle in the group, but here it is soft, thin notes drifting through the air like smoke. You close your eyes, let the music carry you for a few minutes, maybe more. Dinner's beans again. Of course. But someone added dried onion this time, and it's just enough to trick your brain into thinking it's a new recipe. Eli eats a little, first time in 2 days. He smiles. Don't tell anyone. But I missed this garbage. You laugh. Good, you say. Because it's tomorrow's breakfast too. He groans. You both laugh. Just for a second. Things feel normal. Later, you lie on your bedroll, arms behind your head, staring at the stars. They're clearer tonight, brighter, as if the sky's cleaned itself up just for you. You count them, then stop counting, then count again just to stay awake. A coyote howls in the distance, long, slow, almost bored. Judas shifts beside you, exhales, then settles. The fire cracks gently behind your closed eyes. You think about those 4 graves, about Eliskopf, about the cow who couldn't walk. And you think maybe this is the West. Not the one in stories or movies or songs, but the real one, the hard one. And somehow you're still here, still upright, still riding. The morning starts with the smell of smoke, faint, but sharp enough to make your nose twitch before your eyes even open. You sit up, slow and sore, and take in the crisp air laced with that burned tang. Not wood smoke from the cook fire, wild smoke, brush fire smoke, the kind that gets under your skin. Walt's already up, stomping the edge of something blackened with a shovel in a canteen. Caught it early. He grunts, eyes narrowed against the light. Could have been worse. You glance at the circle of scorched earth just 20 yards from camp, probably sparked by a stray ember or bad wind shift, maybe even the heat off a rock. The fire only got a small patch, but out here, small is still dangerous. 5 riders, including you, form a hasty fire line, stomping embers and beating ash with wet blankets until the smoke sighs into stillness. No one talks. No one curses. Just work. Then water. Then saddle up. You don't need reminding that the prairie doesn't care about your plans. It burns, freezes, floods, and forgets. Cowboys adjust, or they disappear. Historians still argue whether cowboy fire protocol was organized or just chaos held together by dirty hats and pure luck. Judging by this morning, it's both. The fire spooks the cattle, so the trail boss decides to push the herd higher, along a bluff route he doesn't love but trusts more than open plains full of cinders. It's steeper, narrower. A lot of grumbling from men and animals both. But you follow orders, always do. Judas picks his way along the rock with unusual care, his hooves clicking like drum beats against the canyon path. He doesn't even try to chew his bit or sneak a bite of saddle leather today. He knows better. You ride tight. Keep your eyes on the cattle and your ears on the wind. The path curves and twists, boxed in by stone. One wrong move, and someone's tumbling a dozen feet with a snapped leg or worse. The silence starts to wear on you. Where? Out here, when birds don't sing and wind doesn't blow. It doesn't mean peace. It means something's watching. You pass through a shadowed pass just before midday, steep cliffs on either side, sun high but the light barely touching the ground. The herd slows, sensing something off, and then you see them. Two figures standing on the ledge ahead, arms up, palms visible, not bandits, not warriors, just people. You approach slowly. The trail boss nods for you and Jeremiah to ride ahead. The figures are settlersmen and women, dirty, hungry, sun-baked. Their clothes are burned at the edges, their hands black with soot. They lost their homestead last week. Brushfire took everything. Barn, grain, even the dog. Boy's still missing, the man says. 12. Ran when the fire jumped. We thought he went south, but he doesn't finish. You offer water, food. They take it without speaking. No one asks what happens if the boy isn't found. The trail boss promises to send 2 riders out once the herds camp tonight. You ride on, throat tight. It's the second time this week you've seen someone lose everything. It won't be the last. By late afternoon, you reach a wide, flat meadow, cupped by low hills, shelter, grass, water, a good place to breathe. Camp springs up quick, every hand moving on muscle memory. You help set up the fire trench. Walt gets beans boiling. Someone sharpens a knife too close to the fire, probably more out of habit than need. Jeremiah returns from the creek with 2 catfish flapping in his saddlebag. Claims he caught them with a bootlace and bad attitude. You believe him. The trail boss sends out 2 scouts, like he promised. You watch them ride off toward the dying sun, kicking up gold dust as they go. Part of you wants to believe they'll find the boy. Another part knows better. Dinner feels heavier tonight, not because of the beans. They're as bland as always. It's the silence. The smoke from this morning still clings to your clothes, still lingers in your lungs. You chew slowly, watching the fire pop and spit. Someone brings out a harmonica. The notes are rusty but honest. A few cowboys tap tin cups in rhythm, not quite forming a song, but close enough for comfort. You find yourself humming along. Not because you know the tune, but because your body needs the vibration, needs the proof that something inside you is still moving. Ellis better today. Still coughing, but eating, laughing, even. He tells a story about the time he tried to impress a saloon girl with a lasso trick and ended up roping a preacher's mule instead. You laugh. So does Walt. Even the cowboy with the splinted leg chuckles through his wince. It's small, but it matters. Because out here, joy is like rain rare, unpredictable. But when it comes, everything softens. After the fire dies, you walk a little away from camp, just far enough to feel alone. Judas follows, as always. You rest your hand on his mane. Above, the sky explodes with stars, sharp and clear, the kind of Sky City folk think only exists in paintings. You breathe deep. Cold air, grass, ash, horse, life. Still with me? You whisper. Judas snorts, then nibbles your sleeve. You take that as a yes. Back at your bedroll. The others are already down for the night. Someone snores. Someone else mutters in their sleep. You stretch out slow, arms behind your head, and stare at the dark canvas above. Somewhere out there, a boy is still missing. Somewhere out there, the fire still smolders, but here right now you're alive. Still dirty, still sore, but alive. And in the west, that's enough. You wake to hoofbeats, not the lazy kind you get from a cow rolling over, or the rhythmic shuffle of a tired rider doing his morning loop. No, these are sharp, uneven, frantic. You are already halfway to your boots when you spot the scout galloping in from the west. His horse is lathered with sweat, sides heaving like bellows. eyes wild. The man swings down with a stumble, hands the trail boss something wrapped in a child's handkerchief, and then just stands there, breathing hard, not saying a word. The boss unfolds it, looks, then nods. No questions, no theatrics, just the kind of stillness that says everything louder than shouting ever could. The boy, they found him, but not alive. You don't ask where or how or why. Neither does anyone else. The second scout staying behind, helping the parents, what's left of them. Anyway, gather up whatever hope they can scrape from scorched ground. No one talks about it, but everyone's thinking the same thing. Out here, people vanish all the time. Sometimes it's bandits, sometimes it's fire, sometimes it's just the land. You sip your coffee slowly, the tin cup hot in your hands. The taste is sour this morning, or maybe that's just your stomach. Eli sits beside you, unusually quiet. He doesn't even cough, just stares into the steam, eyes lost in something only he can see. You wonder what he's picturing. You try not to imagine a small boot in the ashes, a cap snagged in a branch, the quiet stillness of someone too young to even fight back. But your brain doesn't listen. Walt hums, softly, under his breath. That same hymn he always turns to when the silence starts pressing too hard. You nod. Barely. It's the only thing that feels appropriate. And once more, the herd starts moving. Because grief doesn't stop cows from wandering, doesn't stop time from passing. Out here, sorrow just rides with you, silent, heavy, uninvited, but never ignored. The trail turns south again, dipping through low grasslands that should feel open, free, light. But today, it just feels exposed. There's no shelter from the wind, no mercy in the sun, and the wind, oh, the wind. It starts as a whisper but climbs quickly into a howl, sharp and steady, scraping against your ears like dry branches on glass. You pull your hat lower, squinting into the dust devils that kick up in front of the herd. Judas isn't happy. He grumbles with every step, flicking his ears, twitching his flanks. You pat his shoulder, steadying him more for your own sake than his. I don't like it either. You mutter. And then, because the world doesn't seem quite cruel enough today, the trail narrows between two ridges and that wind gets funneled like it's angry on purpose. The cattle scatter just enough to make your heart skip. You and Walt veer out wide, trying to bunch them back in. The dust stings your eyes, coats your tongue, settles in your lashes. It's hard to breathe. And then crack. A tree half dead, gnarled, probably old enough to remember the Spanish snaps in the wind and falls across the ravine behind you with a sound like the world splitting open. Every animal jumps. So do you. But a miraculous no stampede. No bolts, just shivers and stillness. Walt exhales. Close. He mutters. Too close. You nod, swallowing dry fear, brushing dust from your collar. Historians still argue whether cowboys had any formal response to natural dangers or if they just rode by instinct and curses. In your case, it's mostly instinct and maybe one whispered prayer. You never expected a tree would scare you more than a gun. Camp that night is quiet. Even the horses don't shuffle much. No one speaks of the boy, but everyone's carrying it. In the way they move. In the way they stare too long into the fire. Eli sits beside you, nursing a cup of coffee like it holds secrets. His face is thinner now, pale. The cough comes and goes, but you can see it. He knows something's lingering in his chest. And it's not just dust. You ever think about leaving? He asks. Suddenly, you blink. Leaving? He nods. Slow. Not forever. Just getting out for a bit, somewhere with windows. You smile, not at him, just at the thought, at the impossible dream of a warm bed and a clean shirt, of no beans. All the time, you say. He chuckles, coughs, sips. That's all. But that tiny exchange does something, makes the wait a little easier. Walt deals cards again. Jeremiah tells a joke about a banker, a bear, and a broken wagon wheel. It doesn't really make sense, but everyone laughs anyway. Desperate for something to hold on to, you lose badly in poker again. But you don't care. You're not here to win. You're here to remember what laughter sounds like. After dinner, after cards, after the last bean is scraped from the pan, you wander out beyond the firelight with Judas trailing behind. The stars above look different tonight, like they're tilted, like the sky had to shift to make room for one more soul. You pick out constellations, half remembered from childhood stories. There's the crooked dog, the bent arrow, the cup that never fills. You name them quietly, like a prayer, like a lullaby for someone who didn't get one. Back at camp, a harmonica plays a slow, broken tune. You know the notes. You don't know the name. But tonight, it sounds like grief, like rest, like a promise not to forget. Judas snorts softly, leans against you. You wrap your arms around his neck, close your eyes, and whisper to the night, "We'll keep riding." Because that's all you can do. Because out here, what else is there? Morning doesn't wait for anyone. Not for the grieving, not for the sick, not for the men with sore backs or cracked lips or eyes too heavy to open. The sun stretches over the prairie like a whip across the sky, and just like that, you're awake again, back in the saddle, back in the dust. The herd's already shifting, lowing restlessly as the smell of dew lifts from the ground. You rub your eyes, spit to clear your throat, and nudge Judas into motion. Another day begins, just like the last, just like tomorrow. There's a sort of comfort in it, you suppose. A rhythm that doesn't ask questions. Only cattle do that. Judas lumbers forward, tail flicking lazily at invisible flies. He's tired, same as you, but reliable, always moving. You wonder what he dreams about. Maybe greener grass, or a life without saddlebags and spurs. You'd trade him places if you could, except you wouldn't know what to do with all the chewing. Today's trail cuts through open prairie wide, sweeping plain with barely a tree in sight. The grass ripples like waves in the wind. Beautiful, in a lonely sort of way, but dangerous, too. There's no cover here, no shade, no place to hide from the sun or from anything else that might be watching. Eli rides beside you, his back on his horse, but slower than usual. His skin looks waxy, pale around the edges. You offer him your canteen. He sips once, then hands it back without a word. He's not coughing this morning, which would be a relief if it didn't feel like the quiet before a storm. You want to ask if he's all right, but you don't, because out here, asking feels like tempting fate. And sometimes, silence is the only way to stay sane. You pass a bone pile just before noon. Cattle skulls, rib cages, a rusted branding iron poking out like a grave marker. You all slow down without speaking. It's not recent. Maybe a year old, maybe more. A drive that didn't make it, or got ambushed, or walked straight into a dry riverbed and never walked out. There's no plaque, no names, just sun-bleached history. Jeremiah tips his hat as you ride by. Walt murmurs something about bad luck. You just look forward, one foot in front of the other, one hoof after the next. Historians still argue whether most drives succeeded or simply vanished into dust and bone. Riding through this place, you get the feeling they didn't vanish. They just got swallowed. The wind shifts mid-afternoon. It brings with it a smell, faint, metallic, unsettling. You know that smell. You hope you're wrong, but as you round the next ridge, the sky confirms it. A thunderhead, black and bloated, rising on the horizon like a promise. Storm's coming. Big one. The trail boss doesn't hesitate. He calls out orders, voice sharp against the wind. You tighten your reins, check your gear, kick Judas into a faster pace. Rain on the open plains isn't romantic. It's war, especially when it's paired with lightning, especially when you're in the middle of nowhere with nothing taller than you and no place to run. You reach a cluster of low buttes just as the first drops hit. Fat, cold, heavy. The sound is soft at first, just tapping on your hat brim and saddle leather. But then it swells, rushing like a river in the sky, hammering down with no rhythm, no mercy. You dismount fast, dragging your slicker out from your bedroll just in time. Judas whinnies, dancing sideways. You soothe him, speaking gently, words lost in the roar. The herd, scattered. Rain spooks them. So does thunder. You see two riders already chasing strays, silhouettes blurred by sheets of water. You can't see Eli anymore. You hope he found cover. The storm doesn't pass. Not for an hour. Maybe two. It just lingers. And in that time, the world becomes a blur. Mud sucks at your boots. Water drips down your neck. Your hands are so cold you can't feel the reins. You huddle near a butte, shielded from the worst of it, and watch lightning crack the sky like broken glass. Judas lowers his head beside you. Somewhere in the distance, a cow bellows along, lost sound. You whisper back, "We're still here." It's more for you than the cow. When the rain finally breaks, it does so all at once, like a faucet turned off. The silence is deafening. Water still drips from every surface. Your clothes are soaked, your saddle's ruined, but the herd is alive, scattered, tired, cranky but alive. The sky clears just enough to show a wide band of gold along the horizon. Sunset, trying to make peace with the mess. You remount. Judas stumbles a bit. So do you. But forward is the only direction that matters. Camp is sloppier than usual. Everything's damp. Everything smells like wet leather and wet socks. The fire smokes instead of burning. Dinner's more chewing than taste. But somehow it feels like victory. Because you're here. Still riding. Still intact. You glance around the circle. Ellis wrapped in 2 blankets, shivering slightly, but upright. Jeremiah hums under his breath, sharpening his knife on a whetstone. Walt's pouring water out of his boots, grumbling like he's married to the rain. You take it all in and let yourself breathe. That night, the sky is impossibly clear. The stars return twice as bright, like they were just washed. You lie back on your bedroll, arms folded behind your head, letting your muscles go slack one at a time. The cold creeps in slowly, but it's a gentle cold now. A welcome cold. You close your eyes and murmur, "Let tomorrow come." And this time, you almost mean it. You wake to warm thrill warmth this time, not the blazing slap of noon sun or the scratchy heat rising from saddle leather. This is softer, gentler, golden light stretching slow across your cheeks, like someone peeled open the morning carefully, just for you. And for a second, you almost believe it might be a good day. Almost. Then your shoulder reminds you it kissed a dry creek bed yesterday. Your back reminds you it spent too many nights curled up on uneven ground. And your ribs, well, they creak like the floorboards of an old saloon. You groan, sit up slow, everything aches, but nothing's broken, so that's something. Jeremiah's already up, crouched over the fire, poking at a kettle like it insulted his mother. Coffee's mean today, he mutters without looking up. Means better than polite, you croak, rubbing the sleep from your eyes. He gives a small chuckle deep. Tired, but genuine. You check on Elegy. Hez still in his bedroll, curled up tight, one hand clutched to his chest. His skin's gone a shade paler overnight, lips dry, sweat along his brow. You kneel beside him, hand on his shoulder, still breathing. One eye cracks open. Barely, he rasps. You smile. Good. Wouldn't want you skipping chores. He smirks weakly. I'd trade lungs for legs right now. You hand him a flask of water, still cool from the night air. He sips like each drop is gold. You can't help but watch him too long. Out here, sickness doesn't wait for medicine. It waits for weakness. And then it pounces. You pat his blanket, stand up. You'll watch him closely today. Closer than usual. Breakfast is tragic but familiar. Beans barely warm. Bread stale, crumbling at the edges. Coffee dark as wagon grease and twice as bitter. No one complains. Complaining takes energy, and energy's become a rare currency. You sit around the fire in silence, chewing slowly, boots still damp from yesterday's rain. Jeremiah coughs into his hand. Walt stretches with a sound like ungreased hinges. Eli forces down half a biscuit, then leans back with a sigh. The trail boss doesn't say much, just points his spoon in the direction of Buzzard Hollow and raises one eyebrow. You all get the message. Finish eating, saddle up, move out. Buzzard Hollow earns its name before you even enter. The sky goes quiet, the land flattens, and the wind dies altogether. It's eerie, this hush, like the land is holding its breath, like something once screamed here, and the air still remembers. You've heard stories. Of course. A cattle drive that vanished, a fever that took a dozen men, bandits dressed like drovers, even one tale about a sudden, unexplained fire that left nothing but ash and hooves. Historians still argue whether any of that actually happened or if it's all just trail legend to keep young riders alert. You don't need proof. You can feel it. Something about Buzzard Hollow makes your stomach sit sideways. The land is barren, just dust, sparse grass, and silence. You can hear your own heartbeat in your ears. Judas walks carefully, hooves tapping like distant drum beats. Even the herd seems unsettled. The cattle move slower, their heads lower to the ground, as if they sense it too. Eli rides with his head bowed. He looks like he's holding onto the saddle more than riding it. You stay close, just in case. Jeremiah reads ahead, scanning the ridgelines. Walt's chewing on a stick again. He claims it's to settle his nerves. You think he just likes the noise? Around noon, the heat comes back. Thick. Still crushing. You've ridden hotter temperatures. Sure. But not like this. This feels artificial. Like someone placed a giant glass bowl over the world and left you to cook in it. You pull your hat lower, bandana up. Your shirt's already soaked with sweat. The leather saddle beneath you groans. Judas grunts. Hez as miserable as you are. There's a long stretch of silence, just hooves, flies, and the distant moan of tired cattle. You pass the time counting dust devils, 1, 3, 6, then 9. They spiral across the plane like they're late for an appointment. You kind of envy them, spinning wildly, with no destination. Then Eli coughs, hard, twice, and slumps forward in the saddle. You rush to his side. His face is flushed, his lips cracked. He blinks like the sunlight hurts. Jeremiah pulls up, unscrewing a flask. "Drink this," he says, not unkindly. "What is it?" Eli mumbles. "Don't ask." Eli drinks, immediately regrets it, but he keeps it down. You ride beside him for the next 2 hours, not saying much, just staying close. You count each of his breaths. He doesn't notice. By late afternoon, you hit the dry creek bed again, a scar across the trail, 10 feet wide, maybe 3 feet deep. You dismount, remembering yesterday's fall. Your shoulder still hums with that memory. Judas steps cautiously beside you. The ground holds this time. Sort of. It crumbles just a little, enough to make your stomach drop. But you stay upright. You glance behind. Eli hesitates at the edge. His hands shake slightly. You walk back. "Come on," you say softly. "Lean on me." He nods, dismounts, walks with you across the gully, each step a wobble. Jeremiah follows behind, just in case. By the time you reach the far side, your back's aching and your patience is a little thinner, but Ella's still breathing. That's the win. Camp that night feels fragile, like it might blow away in the breeze, and the fire refuses to start, then burns too hot. Dinner is dry beans and 2 broken jokes. Walt tries to sing, but his voice cracks halfway through a hymn. Still, no one stops him. Eli lies wrapped in 2 blankets, coughing in short, tired bursts. You sit beside him for a while, saying nothing, just listening to the wind scrape against canvas and cattle lowing softly in the dark. Then, after a while, he drifts off. And so do you. Later, long after the fire's gone to coals, you wake to stars, clear, sharp, endless. You lie there, staring up at them. Your whole body aches. But somehow tonight, that feels like proof you're still here. And as your eyes close again, the last thing you think is, we're not done. Not yet. But we're still moving. And out here, that's everything. By morning, the sky is already pale with heat. No dew clings to the grass. No cool lingers in the shadows. Just a stillness that makes the air feel thicker than it should. You blink, slowly awake. Every part of your body feels heavy, as if the dirt beneath you has decided it wants to keep you. You stretch gently. Your shoulder groans in response. Not worse, just tired, like the rest of you. Camp is quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Drained quiet. You see Jeremiah crouched by the fire pit, poking listlessly at a heap of blackened twigs. The fire refuses to rise. Same as all of you. Walt is brushing dust off his boots, not to clean them, but because it's something to do. He hasn't said anything yet. That's how you know it's a hard morning. Then there's Eli, still curled up in his bedroll, still pale, still sweating. You walk over slowly, kneel. His chest rises and falls, but each breath is short, shallow. You reach out, press your hand to his forehead. Still too warm, still too weak. You whisper. You awake. No response. Then a small flicker of movement, just his fingers twitching beneath the blanket. It's not much, but you'll take it. Jeremiah appears beside you. He's holding a dented tin mug with both hands, like it might shatter. Ginger root, honey, and something from Walt's saddlebag I didn't ask about. He shrugs. It smells like medicine. so I'm counting that as hope. You lift Ellis' head gently, just enough to pour a little down his throat. He coughs, flinches, but drinks, then slumps back, eyes fluttering closed. Jeremiah rubs the back of his neck. We can't stay here. You nod. You know. The trail waits for no one. The herd moves slowly today, slower than usual. Even the cattle seem to feel the weight of the sun pressing down. You're on Judas early, has sluggish to his hooves, drag a little more. His tail swishes more often, more angrily. The flies are relentless. The heat is worse. You pat his neck. We're just walking through hell together, aren't we? He flicks an ear, as if he agrees. Or maybe he's just annoyed you're talking again. You fall into rhythm with the others. No one speaks. No one sings. No one whistles. There's no energy for it. Only dust. Dust in your nose. Dust in your mouth. Dust in your soul. The only sound is the groan of saddle leather and the occasional lowing of a calf. Everything else feels like it's holding its breath. Then you see them. Buzzards. Circling low over the horizon. You tense. So do the others. Even without a word, you all drift toward the direction of the circling wings. It doesn't take long to find the wagon. Old. Wood cracked and gray. Canvas ripped down one side. A barrel rolled halfway out. No horses, no people in sight. Just that smell. Not fresh, not sharp, just a dry, sour note in the air, like something faded but still there. Jeremiah dismounts first, then you, then Walt. You approach slowly. The wind kicks up a few strands of grass, but nothing else moves. You pull aside the canvas flap. Inside, a blanket. Something beneath it. You freeze. You know what it is, even before the others step closer. It's not gruesome. It's not even shocking. It's just quiet. Final. Someone had tucked them in carefully, not in panic, not in fear, but with care. There's no note, no name, just the evidence of a life that reached the end of its road. You step back, stare out over the dry grass. Who were they? You imagine a woman, maybe, a bonnet pushed back on her head, a Bible in her hands, or maybe an old man traveling west for one last try at something. You picture their last morning, how quiet it must have been, how slow, how still. Maybe they knew. Maybe they just laid down and let go. And the wagon kept its silence. You dig. No one argues. No one suggests waiting for help. There won't be any. You grab a shovel. The ground fights you. Hard-packed, brittle. Your hands blister fast, but you don't stop. Jeremiah works beside you, not saying much. Walt hums something tuneless. Even that feels respectful. The grave isn't deep, but it's enough. You all stand around it. Walt clears his throat. May they rest. May we keep moving. That's all he says. That's all that's needed. A board goes at the head. One small cross carved into it with the tip of a knife. That's the memorial. And then you mount up and ride on. The road ahead stretches longer than it should. It always feels longer after something like that. The sun hangs in the sky like it's waiting for something to happen, or daring you to keep going. Judas stumbles once. You mutter something comforting to him, though you're not sure if it's for him or for you. Your mind drifts. You picture that wagon again. Try to imagine what they dreamed of before it all fell apart. Did they have a destination? A name for the homestead they never reached? A letter they meant to send? You shake your head, trying to clear it. The thoughts cling like spider webs. By late afternoon, Ella's stirring. When you finally reach camp, he's sitting up, leaned against a saddlebag with the look of someone who's floated just barely above drowning. You bring him a cup, ginger, honey, warm water. He holds it like it's fire. He takes a sip, then two. His hands tremble, but he drinks. He looks up at you with eyes that are still cloudy, but not empty. Where'd we go today? He asks. You pause, then lie. Just dust and flat land. Nothing worth remembering. He nods slowly. Good. I don't think I could have handled interesting. You smile, just a little. The fire crackles weakly behind you. The stars begin to rise, one by one. And as Eli leans his head gently against your shoulder, you exhale. You don't know what tomorrow will bring. But for now, for this quiet, firelit moment, you let your bones go soft and you rest. Sleep doesn't come easy that night. You lie still, wrapped tight in your blanket, eyes open to a sky scattered with stars like cold silver coins. Each one blinks slow, deliberate like it's watching you right back. And in between, silence. So complete. It hums. The fire is nothing more than a red ring now. It glows faintly, like the breath of something ancient. Judas stands nearby, head low, tail flicking with the occasional twitch. The herd is mostly quiet, save for the soft clink of hooves shifting and a few deep, sleepy snorts. But your mind's not quiet. Not yet. You think about Ella still fighting off whatever's been boiling inside him for days. You think about the body in the wagon you buried yesterday. You think about how fast this land swallows people and how slow it is to give anything back. You shift on your bedroll. Your shoulder protests with a dull throb still, reminding you of that bad landing a few days back. Funny how the trail keeps its own record of your mistakes. Eventually, your eyes shut, and when they open again, it's morning, but not a fresh kind of morning. More like the night just rolled over and said, "Your turn." The trail boss is already up, standing like a fence post at the edge of camp, arms crossed, eyes scanning the horizon like it might blink. He doesn't say anything. Doesn't have to. His silence carries its own weight. You stretch slowly. Every joint cracks like a branch in the wind. Walt curses at a kettle that won't boil. Jeremiah squints into his coffee like it might spell out a prophecy. You saddle Judas slowly, not because you're lazy, but because the air today feels heavy, like it's holding its breath. Ella's still groggy. You hand him some dry bread and water. He nods. Doesn't say much, but he eats, and that's progress. We'll take it slow today, the boss mutters. Nobody objects. When he says that, something's usually coming. The herd moves steady. You're grateful for that. The rhythm of hooves on dirt, the low, grumbling groans of the steers, the gentle creak of leather with each sway of the saddle. It's almost peaceful. You glance around. No wind today, no clouds. Just a wide, white sky and a sun that's already hinting it's in a bad mood. And for a little while, you start to think maybe today won't be so bad. Maybe just heat and dust, nothing dramatic. Then someone screams. It's not loud, not long, but it's the kind that snaps your spine straight and sets your heart galloping. You pull hard on Judas's reins. He pivots fast. You see Jeremiah already off his horse, running. You kick forward and follow. There by a scrub bush, a young drover named Tom, frozen stiff, pale as paper, eyes wide, and at his feet a rattlesnake, coiled, still twitching from where Jeremiah stomped it dead with the heel of his boot. But the damage has been done. Twin puncture marks bloom on Tom's ankle, red and swelling already. Blood oozes slow and dark down his boot. You drop down, rip a strip from your shirt, tie it above the bite, not tight enough to cut circulation, but just enough to slow the venom. Walt's already there, fumbling with a bottle of whiskey. Tom drinks like it's water, gasping. The trail boss barks, keep him awake. We don't stop unless he can't sit up. That's it. Marching orders. The trail doesn't care, and it sure as hell doesn't pause for panic. The next hours pass in a strange mix of adrenaline and slow motion. You ride beside Tom, his pale, sweating buckets, eyes twitching from side to side. You keep talking, anything to keep him tethered. You tell him dumb stories about your first pony that wouldn't stop walking in circles, about the time you mistook a cow for a cougar and hid in a barrel for 3 hours. He laughs. Once, weakly, but it's a laugh. You'll take it. Jeremiah rides on the other side, sponge wiping Tom's forehead with a rag dipped in warm canteen water. The whole group slows. No one complains. Even the cattle seem to get it. They plod along, heads down, hooves dragging, as if the whole herd has agreed today. We go gentle. You pass a dry creek bed around noon. Judas stumbles a bit on the rocky edge, and your heart jumps. You remember your fall. That sick, spinning moment where sky and ground swapped places. The way your shoulder hit first, followed by the gritty taste of your own breath being knocked clean out of you. One mistake, 1 second, you shake the thought. Steady, Judas. He huffs softly. You pat his neck. Not today, boy. Not today. Eventually, the boss calls for a break. You find shade under a red rock outcrop cool enough to be merciful. Tom slumps down, breathing shallow but steady. His lips are pale, but his eyes flutter less. Maybe the venom didn't hit full force. Or maybe he's just tougher than he looks. You hand him a strip of dried apple from your pouch. He chews like he's dreaming it's pie. Jeremiah leans back against a boulder, watching the sky. He mutters. Historians still argue whether snakes were the biggest killer out here or just the most dramatic. You smirk. Snakes got flair. Death by dysentery just doesn't make the campfire stories. He laughs. And for a moment, the air lightens. That night, Tom sleeps near the fire, wrapped in all the spare blankets anyone could find. His face is still flushed, but the shaking has stopped. Eli sits beside him, slowly spooning warm broth into a tin mug. Tom sips, smiles. You sit next to them, arms looped around your knees. There's a peace in the firelight. The cattle murmur soft and slow. The stars flicker like old lanterns hung high and far. Across the way, Walt tells a story something about a preacher's daughter who shot a man in the foot for chewing too loud. No one knows if it's true. No one really cares. The fire pops. Jeremiah hums something that sounds like a lullaby in a language you don't know. And for a little while, just a little, the world feels bearable, not safe, but soft around the edges, and you let yourself sink into that softness, grateful that for now everyone is still here. You're up before the sun, not because anyone calls your name, not even from some aching joint or sudden noise. It's just that quiet feeling like something important is about to begin or maybe end. The air is cooler than it's been in days. You sit up slowly, blanket falling off your shoulders, no wind, no birds, just that pale blue tint that comes before sunrise. The fire's nothing but a soft red belly, breathing low under ash. Judas lifts his head from where he's been dozing. He doesn't move, just watches, like he knows. You pour water into a dented tin cup. Drink it slow. It tastes of dust and metal, but it's cold, and it wakes something in you. Walt snores under his saddle blanket, half-crushed biscuit in his hand. Jeremiah's rolled away from the fire, back to the rest of you. Eli and Tom lie close, sharing warmth under layers of canvas and wool. The boy's breathing steady now. You stand, stretch, bones crack like twigs. Nothing new. Just another day in the saddle waiting to happen. After a coffee thick, bitter, miraculous, you mount up. No one says much. The trail boss gives a slight nod. And that's enough. It's a language of fewer and fewer words now. The herd begins its slow shuffle. Dust kicks up in lazy clouds. Judas falls into rhythm beneath you. Reliable, like a second heartbeat. You pass a stand of dead mesquite trees, twisted, bare, like gnarled hands reaching for a sky that doesn't answer anymore. The sun's still low, but it already promises heat, the kind that peels thoughts back layer by layer until all that's left is, keep going. You glance over at Jeremiah. He rides in silence, his eyes fixed ahead. One hand on the reins, the other loosely gripping something in his coat pocket. That letter? Walt sidles up next to you. He gives you a look that says, I won't ask if you won't. Then after a beat, know what I miss? You raise an eyebrow. He smiles. Being bored. Real, honest boredom. Not the kind where your boots are filled with cactus needles and you're wondering if that cloud looks like rain or a warning. You grin. Bet you give up your last biscuit to be stuck behind a desk right now. He nods. Only if the desk came with a fan and no cows. Then he drifts ahead, whistling something too cheerful for the mood. By midday, the air's turned thick, dry, but weighty, like heat with opinions. You find yourself counting fence posts that don't exist just to pass the miles. The cattle groan softly, their pace slows. Even Judas' ears tilt back in protest now and then. You loosen your bandana. Let sweat cool your neck. It doesn't help much. You glance over at Jeremiah again. Still quiet. Still holding that letter close. Finally, when the trail boss signals for a break, you nudge Judas toward him. He dismounts, ties his horse, then sits under a patch of scraggly shade and pulls out his knife. You join him. No need for small talk. You wait. After a while, he speaks. My father, he was cruel. Just distant. Like he was born with half a heart and didn't know how to share it. You nod. Let him keep going. He used to stand on the porch when I left for school, arms crossed like he was measuring something, never waved, never smiled, just watched. He shakes his head, blade slicing curls of wood from a stick he's whittling to nothing. I thought maybe one day I'd earn it. You know, a wave, a nod, something. He chuckles once bitter, but instead, I got a letter saying he died and asked for me. You study him for a moment, then offer. That doesn't mean you failed. It just means he took too long. Jeremiah sighs. I don't even know what I'd say if I'd gone. Hey, Pa, I'm the one who ran off to chase cows and sleep in dirt. How've you been? You smile gently. Would have been an honest start. He nods, then pockets the knife. Still wish I'd seen him one last time. Even just to sit on that porch, both of us silent, would have been enough. You reach over, pat his shoulder, leave your hand there a second longer than usual, then stand. Let's move. Shade's getting stingy. Later that evening, after the sun gives up and rolls behind the hills, the campfire crackles alive again. Tom's sitting up now, propped against a log. His face is drawn, but alert. Eli spoons him something warm and broth-colored. The boy smiles between sips. You lie back on your bedroll, staring up at the stars. They don't twinkle out here. They burn, cold and sharp and infinite. Walt begins telling some ridiculous story about a woman who taught her pet chicken how to gamble. No one interrupts. Even Jeremiah chuckles. Just once. But you're only half listening. Because your mind drifts to your father. To your home. Whatever that means now. To the feeling of leaving. To the one letter you never wrote back. You close your eyes. Feel the heat of the fire on your face. Hear the breath of cattle nearby. The occasional rustle of a bedroll. The soft, soft scrape of someone sharpening a blade by habit. The world doesn't give you closure out here. It gives you motion. It gives you dust. It gives you the grace of one more quiet night. And sometimes that's all you need. The trail looks different this morning. You can't explain it, really. The land hadn't changed, still dry, still cracked, still painted in ochre and dust. But the feeling in your chest has something unspoken, something like goodbye. You wake before anyone else. Stretch slowly, joints clicking into place. Judas lifts his head, ears forward, eyes calm. You give his neck a soft rub. Almost there, boy. The others stir one by one. Walt groans like an old barn door. Eli coughs, but it sounds better today, deeper, less sharp. Tom grins at the rising sun like it's his first time seeing it. And Jeremiah, he's already up, staring east, hands on his hips, his long shadow stretched thin behind him. You walk up beside him. Sleep, you ask. He nods slowly. For once. Neither of you say more. The silence says enough. You ride out just after breakfast, if you can call one dry biscuit and hot black coffee breakfast. The herd moves with that strange mix of reluctance and instinct. They don't know where they're going, but they know they're close. The sky is wide, cloudless, a blue so sharp it almost hums. The air smells like cedar and old grass and ash. Even the wind has calmed. It no longer slaps your face, it exhales, like the land itself is finally relaxing. You trail behind the others a moment, letting them ride ahead, letting yourself take in the moment, and suddenly you remember that first day, years ago, when you left your hometown behind, boots barely broken in, thinking you'd come back rich, or famous, or just different. You didn't expect to fall in love with the in-between, the quiet, the dust, the slow rhythm of hooves and breath, and days that don't care who you used to be. Midday brings the ridge. The whole crew halts at the top. Below you, the river, winding slow and fat, gleaming like polished tin in the sun. Beyond it, green pastures. Beyond that, a squat station house, your final stop. Tom lets out a whistle. Walt groans. If there's no pie in that station, I'm eating my hat. Jeremiah doesn't say anything, but you see it in his jaw, how he clenches. Then let's go. It's the same feeling you're fighting, relief, grief, and something else. Like losing a version of yourself you hadn't realized you'd grown to love. You urge Judas forward. The descent is easy. Your saddle creaks. The herd pushes gently, and the sun rides just above your shoulders. At the bottom, you cross the river. Cold water splashes up your boots. Judas snorts at it. You smile. Even the river feels ceremonial. The station house is small, barely more than a barn with a porch, but smoke curls from the chimney, and when a figure steps out onto the steps, waving, you feel a lump form in your throat. It's over, not just the job, but the version of life where tomorrow always looked like today, where you counted time in sunsets and the number of beans left in the pot. The trail boss rides up. Unhitch him, he says quietly. You did good. You nod. but your throat's too tight for thank yous. Walt dismounts dramatically, kisses the dirt. Eli rolls his eyes. Tom laughs so hard he nearly falls off his horse again. Jeremiah says nothing, but he takes his hat off, holds it against his chest, then walks into the barn without a word. You follow. Inside. The air is cool, shaded, smells of leather, hay, and quiet endings. You help unsaddle Judas, brush him down, whisper nonsense to him like you always do. He leans into your touch like he knows it's your last ride together. Thanks, you say softly, for carrying me when I didn't know where I was going. You don't expect a reply, but you imagine one anyway. That night, the last fire, no more cattle, no dust in your teeth. Just the crew, what's left of it, sitting in a lazy circle, nursing the final cup of coffee. Someone found a deck of cards. Someone else found a bottle that may or may not still be whiskey. You sit beside Jeremiah. Neither of you are looking at the flames. You're watching the shadows they cast on the grass. He speaks first. I think he'll head north. He says, maybe Wyoming. You nod. Sounds cold. He grins faintly. Cold sounds good. Walt says he's staying on with the station for a while. Says he likes beds. Tom's going back to his mother. He doesn't say it, but you know he's scared. And glad. And try not to cry. You don't say where you're going. Because honestly, you don't know yet. And that's okay. Later, when most are asleep and the fire is just embers, you step away. Lie flat under the open sky. Stars above, grass below. Just like it started. The silence is rich again. Not empty, not lonely, full of memory, of horses and campfires and letters never sent, of Ella's slow recovery, of Walt's ridiculous stories, of Tom's wide-eyed fear and stubborn grin, of Jeremiah's humming, soft and steady. You breathe in deep and let it all settle. The dust may wash off. The calluses might fade. But this version of you, you'll carry it. In how you walk, in how you listen, in how you sit with silence. The trail ends tomorrow. But you keep riding.